Good morning, lovely people. I thought just before we get stuck into today's video, this is the state of my kitchen table. I'm still receiving cards. Thank you, lovelies. There's a couple I want to mention in particular, but this is why I need to get a bigger kitchen table so that it will go all the way back into the alcove, and then my baskets and fruit and stuff can push back, and also so it doesn't have legs and a thing here, so you can tuck a chair under. But it's, it's one of those things. I'm not in a hurry, but it would be nice to have, because this is the state of my kitchen table. Most days, obviously, I'll clear it to eat, but a lot of the time it's a place for sitting and planning and ideas and such like. Right, now you've seen it, let's get on with the show. Are you sitting comfortably? Wriggle, wriggle, I am. A proper good morning to you. I hope you're all well. Yes, thank you for lovely cards. And there are more up there, and there's a couple in the front room. It's been really lovely to have your happy new home greetings to me. And although I've been here now, I think 2 months, it still feels brand new. Anyway, so I wanted to say particularly thank you to Annie. Annie, thank you very much. Annie enclosed a gift, naughty Annie. That gift has just gone into my wallet and is going to come out with me later today, and I'm hoping to pick up some bean poles. Now that things are in the garden, I need the bean poles for supports for the tomatoes and the cucumber TP I'm going to do. I've also I picked up, I can't find any of my own calendula seed. Did I not gather any seed in my last year on the allotment? That would have been a bit remiss, but I can't find any, so I picked up 3 packets of calendula. I'm filming this right at the end of May, so I might still get some. In the allotment, I think it was usually around mid-May I sowed, but I'm hoping to just literally scratch some of these in the front garden. Hope a few will come up. This will also be a late sowing. I thought I've got some rock and core bean seed here, so they're just a little bush bean. I can have little bush beans out the front. And then Michelle, thank you, she sent me some escultia, the California poppy. So the California poppy and the calendula, I want them to just self-seed wherever they want in that front garden, to be that lovely ping of bright oranges and yellows, and then amongst them, well, eventually lavender and the verbena, but this year, odds and sods of food, a cabbage, a bush bean, it doesn't matter. But anyway, thank you for those, Michelle. Also a thank you to our lovely Richard, who made up some oil mixes for me. They're lovely. I'm going to have to give him a ping and ask him to remind me what the scents are. He did tell me, but gorgeous. But at the time he was telling me, I was just too excited for the fact that they were both here to take the information in. And there's another thank you in a second. But ostensibly what today is about, and I've got my pad and my pen ready. I've already had some ideas, but I've been thinking about the shade garden. That bit of the garden right at the top of the side return, so pretty much underneath my bedroom window. And when it comes to growing vegetables, I'm fairly confident. I've done it so much. I just get on with it. But when it comes to flowers and shrubs, I'm way less confident, because I've tended not to grow much by way of that. There are a few flowers, of course, especially things like the calendula and the sculpture, lavender mist and cosmos and all those cottagey ones. Oh, cosmos, put that on the list. Not for the shade garden, but for the sunny border. That's why they always have a pen and pad to hand. But yes, for the shade garden, I felt, I think I'm completely out of my depth. Although flicking through my books, I suddenly realised there are quite a few shade plants that I know and that I really like. But because I felt out of my depth, I have been making the most of the library. Yay! oh, it's so great to have the library. And I've borrowed 2 books, but they have to go back tomorrow. So I've been flicking through them, making a few notes. I'm going to make some proper notes today after we've spoken. I can't extend the borrow on them because they've actually been now ordered by someone else. So I had to order these. They weren't in the library. One of them has come from Bournemouth and one has come from, is that Somerton? So yeah, I can't extend the loan because they've already been bagsied by someone else. So I borrowed Beth Chatto, The Shade Garden. I think probably every gardener has heard of Beth Chatto. She's the one who came up with that really wonderful, easy to remember phrase, right plant, right place. So it's something I've talked about a little bit too as well, same word. I think I was mentioning when I was talking about them, it being quite moist in the shade. I'm pointing this way because that's where the shade garden is, as opposed to that way where the sunny garden is. Yes, if you've got a really moist, even waterlogged area of the garden, it's no point putting, say, a lavender there, because lavender like really free draining soil. They're quite an arid plant. Likewise, if you've got a really sunny, hot spot that's very dry, there's no point in putting a bog plant there because they're just not going to be happy. So yes, right plant, right place, Beth Chatto. And then the other one I got was Stefan Buchatsky's Best Shade Plants. They're quite different books. The Beth Chatto, let me show you, is more, there's a lot more text. And her book goes through the year. Does it start in January? It would make sense. Yeah, so her book sort of is laid out by the year. Awakenings, Spring Enchantment, Early Summer Profusion, High Summer Tapestries. I mean, just her wordage it just gets magical straight away, doesn't it? Autumn's Sunlit Openings, The Depths of Winter. And at the end, there's lists. So the shade-tolerant plants, they're in list form. Let me show you towards the back. So that's a lovely one too. I think the thing about Beth, let me find you a picture which will personify what I'm trying to say. It's very much the inspirational type of book. So you get a picture like that. It's gorgeous. Oh, I think I'd love my garden to look like that. So then you can look up the individual plants. So yeah, it's lovely in terms of inspiring for groupings. I'm just trying to find another one. Yeah, there we go, that's another one. To get ideas for lovely groupings. But it's quite text heavy. So I really enjoyed dipping in. I haven't read it cover to cover. I haven't had time, unfortunately. It's a 3-week loan, but there's been so much else going on, but I've dipped in. The Stefan Buchatsky one is probably, I think, what most of us would want for this sort of occasion. It is quite simply, you get a picture of the plant and then a bit of a description. So it gives you the shade tolerance, i.e. is it light shade to moderate shade or dark shade, deep shade, the type of soil it wants, its hardiness, size, care, propagation and possible problems. So that's been a really good one to sort of flick through and think, oh, that's a pretty plant. What is it, if one doesn't know already? Or, oh, that's a pretty plant. How big is it? And I'm going to come on to that sort of thing in a minute. Euphorbia, a lot of people have mentioned euphorbia. For some reason, I can't stand it. I don't know why. There are plants like that, aren't there, for all of us? Begonias. I can't stand begonias. I don't know, they creep me out. I don't know why. I'm not massively fond of fuchsia either. But this one. So, for example, just a small picture of it here. That's one that many of you will know of as Bleeding Hearts. Its real name is Dicentra. That is one I do know. I'm going to put Dicentra on my list, possibly. Oh, and Digitalis, the foxglove. That's not Digitalis. Digitalis, the foxgloves. Again, I think that's got to be a definite here. The Dicentra, though, it's a decent sized shrub. It's a perennial. So that's the other thing right, let's get into what we're going to think about. But just before I do, so I'm going to have another squiz through these. Oh, so one of the things I thought I do want, I know it as cuckoo pint. It's also known as lords and ladies. Where is the cuckoo pint? Cuckoo pint. It's actually arum. Arum. The boys were teasing me about my pronunciation of arum or arum. 10 and 11. Yes, there we go. When it puts on its red berries, so it has this sort of a creamy white, almost funnel of a petal. It's sort of, instead of petals like this, it's like a single petal that kind of curves around and comes up, and then you get these amazing berries. I love this plant, and it's one that I think of. There's a particular, down here somewhere, there is a particular little lane that we used to go down a lot as kids, and in the autumn, loads of them, absolutely gorgeous. But if I recall, isn't it poisonous? I'm sure it's poisonous in some way. Anyway, so I've been having a look through both of them, and then, oh, amazingly, Amanda, thank you so much. I'm just going to check it is Amanda. I'm sure it's Amanda. Yes, she sent a little card. Oh, and wrapped in lovely paper, and of course I've kept the paper to reuse. Amanda then sent me Making the Most of Shade, this book. Thank you so much. I mean, how perfect to have my own reference book, but really perfect because this was a gift to Amanda from her mum. Her mum has since died, so it's really, really special. And I will do it honour, Amanda. I will do your mum honour by really making the most of it. I haven't had a proper look yet, but it seems to be, it's sort of like a combination of both the library books in that there's a bit more text, but we still get this sort of page, we get a page per plant. So we get some really good detail, but then there's photographs too. And then a quick sort of an at-a-glance guide down this side. And that's kind of what we want at this stage, isn't it? When we're sort of dreaming and planning, that at-a-glance guide, how big is it going to get? How wide is it going to spread? What are its preferences in terms of just how much shade can it tolerate? Oh, beautiful irises. So Amanda, that's a perfect book for me. Perfect, thank you. And the story that comes with it. I've often talked about this, the story of second-hand things, vintage things. I love the book. I love the book for itself. In and of itself, I love this book. But it's the story that comes with something that's second-hand. So the fact that it was given to Amanda by her mum and her mum's no longer with us just makes it all the more special. So, what am I considering when I'm considering this shade garden? I made a lot of notes because I don't want to forget anything. So the first thing I want to consider is where am I going to be viewing this bit of the garden from? Because it is really tucked away. It's probably not somewhere that I'm going to particularly sit. I know I talked about the fact that, you know, if someone mentioned if it's a really hot summer's day, it'll be lovely in that area because it will be cool and in the shade. But actually over by the shed, in that little corner between sort of the end of my house and where the shed starts, that's shady all day. So that's probably going to be my cool corner, and I've got plans for that corner too. I had originally said that the side of the shed, there is some old trellis up, but it's probably too dark to grow anything. It doesn't really get any sunlight, not direct sunlight, but there might be enough reflected light. It might be nice to try and grow something there, especially if I can grow something scented, because that's the area I'm planning to have my table. So I want to have a bench against the two bits of wall. So the shed wall and the end of my house, and then my back door comes out and the steps come down. So in that corner to have a bench like that, then a table and a couple of chairs as well, so that whoever's sitting on the bench is in shade and whoever's sitting on the chair on the other side of the table is in sunshine, so everybody's happy. But on that wall, so I'm going to think about climbers as well that are shade tolerant, but especially if they're scented, but more of that in a second. Back to the shade garden by the bedroom. Where am I going to view it from? So any of you planning a garden too, what's your main viewpoint for the garden? Because that's sort of how you're going to frame it. So for me, yes, I get a view from down the garden, but the main view is going to be from my bedroom. So with that in mind, I can think about where I want heights of things. So I ideally in my design, although there might not be room for it, I will have three layers of height. We'll come to that in a second. So where am I going to view it from? Mostly the bedroom. How much shade is there? Because some plants will tolerate deep shade, as in they never get direct sunlight at all. And some, like we think of a lot of our woodland plants, they will tolerate partial shade or dappled shade, i.e. they get some bits of sunlight but they're under the trees, so the trees' leaves, hence all those lovely spring flowers, that gorgeous pop of colour in the early spring before the trees have put all their leaves on. So just think about, for me, it's that very, very end doesn't get any direct sunlight until at this time of year, about 8 o'clock in the evening. It just gets a tiny bit, just momentarily, maybe for half an hour, and that's it. But otherwise, it's in shade all the time. But then as I come back past my compost bin, this planting scheme will come up to the compost bin. After the compost bin, that's for vegetables. So yes, how much shade? Is it deep shade or dappled shade? How much moisture is there? So that I've discovered since clearing that area, that it's much moister, as you would imagine, than the area that's in full sunshine. And that's generally going to be the case, but of course there are very, very, very dry shady spots too. But know your soil as well. So for me, I'm working with not damp, but it's sort of moist, certainly not dry. I'm working with moist, full-ish shade. Everything's a bit equivocal, isn't it? Then things to think about. Do I need to block a view? Is there something ghastly I want to block? So it's not the case here, but it might be, oh, well, actually, I don't particularly want to see the compost bin from the bedroom. So that's, I can consider from the bedroom, where do I need to plant something so I don't necessarily see the compost bin? But it might be that you have in your garden, with your main frame point of view, that in the middle there's, or just slightly off, there's sort of the end of a shed and it's a bit ugly. It might be a neighbour's shed even, or a bit of neighbour's run down fence. You might think, I want to slightly block that. So think about, is there something you want to block the view of? For me, like I said, maybe the compost bin, but the other thing within that is privacy. Do you need to create privacy? So I do have a neighbour, well, we're attached properties, and they've got their kitchen window. So from the bedroom, I do get a bit of a glimpse of that. So I'm thinking about height. Do you need to block a view or create privacy? And then we get into the fun stuff of colour, texture, form. So for colour, for me, I love blues and greens, great. Shady plants, work with all the different greens. So a lot of the shade plants, there's not a huge variety in colour in terms of flower. There is. You get all the different colours, but there's not a lot to choose from. But working with all the greens, so I'm thinking like the ferns, I would think hostas, except they just get scoffed, don't they? Scoffed by slugs. I don't want to battle slugs. But then in terms of flower colour, I love white, so the foxgloves, I love it in white. And I think because it is quite deep shade, I think the whites of any sort, even if it's going into sort of a really pale buttery yellow, that will be lovely because they'll pop out, they'll show. But as contrast, I might want to pop in there some blues. I like my blues. I'm not a huge fan of pink, not a huge fan, unless it's kind of dusky. It's hard to describe the pink I like, but I'm probably going to stick with whites and blues for that corner. And here we come into the length. Oh, so in terms of form, I'm talking shape. So is it sort of tall, or is it squat and bushy? Is it broad and billowing, or is it skinny and fine and tenderly? And that comes into texture as well. So with the leaves, will I use, and maybe think about a combination of leaves which are shiny, sort of, I was going to say whole leaves, you know what I mean? So imagining a whole leaf as opposed to a very serrated. So thinking of ferns, for example, like the hart's tongue fern, I love it. So it's got these leaves which they have no serrations, that's what I'm trying to say, as opposed to the ferns which are very frondy. Is it smooth and shiny? Is it rough and hairy? Is it soft and hairy? Is it spiky? Are there sort of spiky leaves? Are there lots of delicate little fluffy leaves almost? I think you get the gist. It's quite hard to describe texture in plants, isn't it? Well, that kind of texture and form. So, ideally a bit of both, because the contrast against each other, then it shows. If everything was tall and spiky, it would just look like a tall spiky mess. So having some roundness and some smoothness, having some shiny leaves and some matte leaves, they all help each other to stand out, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not quite sure yet, because I haven't cleared it, in terms of the depth from the path to the fence. Ideally, I'd like 3 layers. So the first layer would be up to about, I'm talking about height of plant now, plants that are maybe up to 20 centimetres, so more like the ground cover type plants. And then the next layer is plants that are maybe 50, 60 centimetres tall. And then the final layer, plants that are over, so say a metre tall, or the climbers. So again, that's as initially I'm daydreaming, I'm picturing myriad different things, but I'm talking now about sort of how I'm going to nail it down to what I actually want or need in that space, because it is quite a small space. In terms of using the book, so just going back to the books a minute and seeing a picture, like say the Dicentra and the Digitalis, of looking at them both and thinking, oh, they're lovely plants, I'd love to have that. And that's why I hovered for a second on the Dicentra. So the next thing to think about is have a look through your books, be attracted by the pictures, think, oh, that's lovely, but then look closely. Because what might look lovely in a picture, and that's why I was showing you the Beth Chatto as well, some of the pictures, it's really quite a large space that picture is showing. So if you've only got a couple of square metres, in a way there's no point in looking at these great swathes of woodland landscapes in a beautiful photograph, because it's just not going to work on your scale. 1 or 2 of the plants might work on your scale, but not that whole sweep of things. So I'm going to be looking, and okay, I've made my list of my most important things that I'm looking at when it's a new plant to me, when it's something I've never grown before. It's new to me, so I need to learn about it before I buy something at a garden centre or nursery and make a mistake. So one of the first things I'm going to look at, because it is a tight, small space, is how does the plant spread? How does it propagate? Is it just going to send out, is it going to just keep multiplying, like with the crocosmia, another corm, another corm, another corm, another corm? Is it going to put out rhizomes? Is it going, in other words, is it going to take over the whole bed? So this one has been quite useful for that sort of information. I need to make sure this is something that's not going to spread too quickly. It's something that is manageable for me because it is on such a small scale here. Check the light preference of the plant, check the soil preference, again in terms of moisture level, but also in terms of things like if it's going to prefer an acidic soil, it might be better to have it in a pot so you can give it ericaceous compost rather than in the garden in just regular garden soil. And really importantly, what is its eventual size? How many times has anyone been to a garden centre and bought a 2 litre pot or something and thought, oh, that's lovely, that's perfect for my garden, but that's only it at the beginning of its life. Or it might be a sort of 2 or 3 year old plant you've bought, but in 5-10 years it swamps the entire garden. So yeah, do check those things and also when you're looking on plant labels at the nursery. Have your own notes. I want to talk about the shopping list in a second. So yeah, I mentioned here in my notes, it's really easy to get carried away when you're looking at the pictures, or if you're at garden centre or nursery. It's so easy to get carried away and almost start planning a garden the size of Versailles in your head. Remember the space you've got. Look up the plant specs in a book, get it from the library, whatever, but look up those plant specs. If it's going to have an eventual size spread of 1 metre and you only have 1 metre, it's not the right plant for your garden, unless that's the only plant you want to have there, in which case, great. You want to fill 1 metre, this plant gets to 1 metre, bung it in, but I want to have more than one plant. And also I think the thing about when you're looking through, it might be seed catalogue you're looking at, or you might get a brochure through from your local nursery with everything in. Yeah, just before you start daydreaming too much and getting carried away and falling in love with something, keep coming back to the basics of what is that plant eventually going to do. Because if it's eventually going to be too big, stop daydreaming about it, just scratch it, get it out of your head, you're not going to have it. Now, if you're going to be buying plants, excuse me. So, and just to say, on the back, talking about the privacy thing, and I mentioned this in a previous video, Paul sent me an article, a link to an article, and it was about, I think it was it the shade? It was to do with shade gardening. I think it was from Gardener's World, but it was specifically about climbers, and it was mentioning the star, the honeysuckle. And as soon as he sent that out to me, I thought, of course it needs a honeysuckle, because honeysuckle, I'm trying to remember the one I had on the plot, but that lovely evening scent right by the bedroom window, wafting in. I mean, I can't think of anything more gorgeous. Plus the climbing rose he's given me. And that's all, it's a damask rose, so it's got a lovely scent too. I just lost me. Oh yeah, so honeysuckle. So the one I had at the allotment was actually a cutting I took. Took a little cutting, about that big. A couple of years, it just didn't really do much. And then in its 3rd year, it went, ta-da, I'm here and I'm gonna grow. And it went mad, great. So ideally, I'd like to get a cutting because it's free. So what I will do is, there was one I spied the other day. While I'm out and about in my neighbourhood, look to see if there's a really lovely honeysuckle, a good, big, strong, vigorous one that won't mind. I'm not going to go up to someone who's just planted a brand new one and say, can I take a cutting? Oh, it's half your plant. But yeah, check out my neighbourhood, and if there's one that I think is really lovely, just go and knock on their door. Can I have a cutting, please? But if I do that, if I have a little honeysuckle searching day, I'll take out with me, take my secateurs, and I'll take a poly bag and a wodge of tissue, so that if I do find a plant that I like and an owner that is happy to let me have a cutting, with that wad of tissue, because I always have water with me, I'll soak that wad of tissue, take the cutting to wrap around the base of the cutting, put it into that poly, get it home and get it into some compost to get it rooted. But yeah, that was a cutting which is brilliant, and let's face it, propagating, doing our own propagation, whether it's by seed or cuttings or layering, it's the frugal way, isn't it? But it's not always possible. So it's quite likely I will be going to a garden centre or nursery. I have one here in Swanage. I don't know whether they'll have everything I want. But when I go, this is the shopping list bit. And this is the bit about, yes, it's wonderful to daydream and fantasise, but this ain't Versailles. That should be the sign on my garden gate. This ain't Versailles. It's my petit Versailles. I will probably, with my list, narrow. So I talked about the 3 layers, the tall, the medium, the small. Within that, I'm going to select 3 plants for each. I may have more than 3 plants for each layer because I've got there's going to be about 4 or 5 metres. So in total, it'll probably be about 9 different types of plants, but repeated. Some, and it might alternate. So where I've got that low level, the 20 centimetre level, it might be a heart's tongue fern, different fern, haven't decided which ferns yet, another heart's tongue, or a little clump of heart's tongues, then a clump of others. So I think I'm probably going to be looking for 9 different types of plants, but possibly 3 of each. So I need to narrow it down. And by having that list, so I'll then have a list, and I might have a top, let's just talk about that top layer, let's say the 1 metre layer. I might have my top 3, so it might be, digitalis will be in that. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head. It might be that I only have that for that top layer. So I've got digitalis done. I definitely want my foxgloves. So I might have that top 3 of definite wants, but I might have a reserve, 4 and 5, number 4 and 5 that are reserve. So if I go to a garden centre, if I go to numerous garden centres and I cannot find that one thing I want, I could substitute it. But essentially, I'm going to have quite a strict list, because you know what it's like when you go to a garden centre or nursery. It's just distraction everywhere, isn't it? You go for a foxglove and you come home with 5 apple trees and currant bushes and dahlias and look, spring bulbs, before you know it, you spent £100 and it's not for anything that you were meant to be buying that day, and it's not for anything that you've planned. I mean, you might have planned all those things, but if you haven't planned them, suddenly you're bringing plants home and you haven't planned a space for them. You might not have a space ready for them. You might have nowhere to plant them out. They may languish in their pots, they may even die in their pots. So, I mean, listen, shop however you want, but I'm quite strict. When I go to that nursery, I'm going to be heading straight for the shade area. If they divvy up their nursery in that way, hopefully they will. But I'm going to have my list of 9 plants, sort of, that I'm after, and I'm going to try not to deviate. I might deviate a bit in the colours. With the foxgloves, there's a lovely pale peachy colour one that both Gary, my allotment friend in London, had, and my friend Jan has over in Seattle. Seed, please. So yeah, that's how I'm going to be tackling the shade garden. It's not. I don't know when it's going to happen. I still have to clear it all. There's a lot to clear. It's just that mat, it's absolutely meshed mat of crocosmia that have just taken over, and where they're within that mat, there's the bluebell bulbs and other weeds. But there is one that I've seen so far, there is one heart's tongue fern there, which I'm going to try to save. It's actually in the wall, so that should be savable when I'm getting rid of everything else. But so I don't know when it's going to happen. There's absolutely no hurry for it, because, like I said, it's a part of the garden I'm hardly even looking at the moment. I'm focusing on the veggie garden. the reason I'm talking about it today is because I've got to get my library books back. So I'm going to delve in. I'm going to have another delve in now for half an hour or so and come up with my final list. Like I said, I've been dipping in most evenings. Yeah, I'm getting carried away in my head. You look, get carried away in your head, have the fantasies, do all that. But then when it comes to actually buying and shopping for the plants, oh, one of my absolute favourites, lilies. Is that Eastervem? Yeah, and Leucogium Eastervem. I had some of this at the allotment. So pretty. They are probably going to be on my list because they're quite small. Species... The species, that's like the original, if you like, 20 centimetres, so yes, down at the bottom. But again, you see what I mean about the white, in that really shady bit right down low, that white makes them pop, and you think, oh, what's that? And it almost encourages you to bend down and have a closer look. Oh, but the lilies are gorgeous. Oh, love lilies. Right. Fantasizing, yeah. I'm going to try and narrow my list down now. My list can stay safe on the pinboard. I'm not about to go out and buy any of this now because I need to clear first. When I get round to it, of course, I will show you what I've bought, and we'll plant the shade garden up together. And then in the meantime, I've got my lovely book from Amanda, so that once these have gone back, before I do my final purchasing, before I actually go out to the garden centre, I can have one more look in here to make sure. See, I don't know what that is in the background. It looks like an allium, doesn't it? But I quite like these kind of sort of mop heads poking up. But again, look at the scale, the thing to come back to all the time. That's a beautiful garden on the cover, but the scale is completely wrong for my garden. It's too big. Oh, but it's lovely. But look how effective, and this could be such a simple scheme. Just these three plants. There's the hosta down at the bottom. See, we've got the layers, and we've got sort of broad leaves. So I mean about the texture, we've got fairly broad leaves. I don't know what this one is behind, but it's got more sort of spiky, slimmer, upright leaves. And then that, oh, sorry, where's the light? There we go. And then that pop of the purple. So if you only had those three plants, what a lovely little triumvirate of plants they are. Yeah, dream big, but then dream realistic, and then check your catalogue books, whatever it is you're referring to, for the actual size and scale of your plants. Make a list, a shopping list, and stick to it. That's what I'll do. Right. It's quite chilly this morning. I need to get up, I need to get moving, get on with things. I need to get back to the library to drop those off. Then I'm going off with my Annie gift. Thank you, lovely, for bean poles. I'm not sure what else. I think that's all I need to do outside today. And then I've got to get back on with really tedious admin stuff. I'm in a bit of a nightmare whirlpool that I can't get out of at the moment. That's to do with planning application for getting my new windows sorted. I don't understand any of it. I'm out of my depth. It's horrible. I just want to put my new windows in. But yeah, I've put that off all weekend. There's no one I can call at the weekend, so I'm going to do this lovely stuff now and then tackle the horrible stuff later, and then hopefully after business hours, 5-6 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, and I can't do any more of this. Hello, we still do this for a phone, don't we? Rather than this. Yeah, then after all that's happened and I'm wound up again, I'm going to go back out into my garden and sit snipping and lopping and chopping and cutting waste material up so it shrinks down. But yeah, a couple of hours in the garden this evening will sort me out. I'm waffling. I need to go. All right, lovelies. I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. In the meantime, happy gardening, planting, planning, daydreaming, whatever you're up to. I hope you are happy doing it. So until the next one, cheerio. Oh, my belly just did a massive bulbarigmus. Cheerio.